A Horse Called Willing. Chapter 21. Appendicitis. By November, the toy box at the back of the West Bend classroom was full and overflowing. There were wooden toys, picture books, and rag dolls in abundance. "It's time to wrap up our gifts," Teacher Helen announced one Friday. She produced a large roll of plain brown wrapping paper and began cutting off pieces. Each child was given paper and a toy. Then Helen gave instructions on how to wrap it securely. "Now, before you forget what toy you wrapped, we'll put a child's name on each parcel. Here's the list they send us." These Spanish names are quite strange. I see they put a B or a G beside each one so we'll know whether it's a boy or a girl. We'll start with you, Edwin. You have a wooden boat? Write to, Juan Samo. Esther, a rag doll? Write to, Alicia Serran. And so on she went, right down the list. Joel wrapped his own orange and black cat. It was going to a 4-year-old boy named Jose. Walking home with Elam later, Joel mused, "I wonder what little Jose looks like. I wish I could see his face when he opens that package." "I think all those little orphans will be surprised and happy," Elam responded. "Please let me tell Mom we wrapped the packages today," Joel begged. "You got to tell her about the Martins' new baby last night." "Okay," Elam agreed grudgingly. He and Joel often quarreled over who should be the first to tell Mom something. Mom wasn't in the kitchen. "Mom!" Joel called. "Here, in the bedroom," came her voice. It sounded strangely weak. Joel sprinted to the bedroom door. "May we come in?" "Yes." He went to her bed. Mom was terribly pale. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "Elam, you will have to call the doctor. My stomach hurts so bad. I'm almost sure appendicitis." Her words ended in a groan. "Do you want the doctor to come?" Elam asked, white-faced. "Probably not. Tell him pain real bad. Tell him what I suspect. He'll get the ambulance. Tell Harvey's, too." Joel was stunned. Ambulance. He sat down near Mom's bed while Elam dashed from the house. All thought of what he had planned to tell Mom had fled. Only very sick people were put in ambulances. Will you go to the hospital?" he asked anxiously. "I'm afraid so," Mom replied weakly. "You liked it at Harvey's when I was in Ohio, didn't you?" Joel said nothing. Going to Harvey's because Mom was in the hospital would be an entirely different story. He sat mutely near Mom, shivering with dread. Every now and then she moaned softly. Once she reached over and touched his hand. "I'll probably be away for a day or two, but don't worry. God is always near us." After what seemed a long time, Elam came back. He sat down on another chair. "The ambulance is on the way. Elsie will be over soon. She says she'll go to the hospital with you." "Oh, good," Mom whispered. Minutes later, the ambulance screeched in the lane. 2 men carried a stretcher indoors. They asked Mom some questions, then put her on the stretcher. Mom Yoder hurried up just before the ambulance was ready to leave. Before climbing in, she said, "Boys, you may go over to our house. Lizzie is making supper tonight." Never in his life had Joel felt so lost and desolate. He stood watching until the ambulance was out of sight. Then Elam tugged at his coat sleeve. "Come on, we'll get cold standing here. You heard what Elsie said." Woodenly, Joel trudged after his older brother out the lane. It was too muddy to go through the fields. "Lizzie just turned 12, Elam was saying. "I wonder if she can actually cook supper." Joel didn't care. He didn't want supper anyway. The Yoder's kitchen was warm and noisy. The littlest ones stopped their playing for a few minutes when Joel and Elam arrived, but they could not keep still for long, and soon it was noisy again. Joel sat gloomily on the wood box. Every now and then he glanced at Lizzie. She was industriously cutting potatoes and carrots into little chunks and putting them into a pot. Soon the soup was bubbling on the wood stove. Dorcas and Ruth helped set the table. In spite of himself, Joel grew more and more interested in what the girls were doing. They went about their work so seriously. They looked just like little mothers. Supper was ready when the men came in. Dad Yoder praised the girls for managing so well. But 16-year-old Vernon was not so kind. He took one spoonful of the soup and declared, "This tastes burnt." Joel tasted it too. It was true that the soup was not as good as his mom made, but Dad Yoder silenced everybody by saying, "A burnt flavor makes the soup taste just right." Joel managed to eat some of the first course, but refused the pie. Whenever he thought of Mom, off somewhere in the hospital, his stomach went into knots. After supper, Dad Yoder asked, "Do you want to come to the barn, Joel and Elam?" Joel shrugged. He much preferred to stay in the house so he would be there when Elsie came back. But after Elam decided to go out, Joel did too. Mom Yoder had not returned by the time they came in again. Joel sat on the wood box once more, watching as Lizzie got the younger children off to bed. Soon Dad Yoder came in from the barn too. Joel was afraid Harvey would make him go to bed, but he didn't. So Joel huddled near the stove, watching the hands of the clock creep past 9 o'clock and slowly on towards 10. At 9:45, Dad Yoder put down his book. He peered at Joel and Elam over the top of his reading glasses. "Would you like to go to bed?" Joel shook his head. Elam asked, Is Mom Yoder coming back tonight?" "I think so, but it might be late." Just then they heard a car motor. Joel sprang to the window. He could dimly make out Elsie Yoder coming up the walk. Then she came inside, and he held his breath, waiting. Mom Yoder smiled kindly at the boys. "They operated on your mother soon after we got to the hospital. Her appendix had burst, so it's no wonder she was so sick. But she'll be all right," Mom Yoder added reassuringly. "The doctor said the operation went well." "When can she come home?" Elam asked in his matter-of-fact way. Elsie shook her head. "I don't know. It will be a few days at least. But do you know what? I've already asked the man who brought me home tonight to take us down tomorrow again." "Us?" croaked Joel. "Can we go to see her?" "You certainly can. So now I'm sure you'll want to go to bed." Joel nodded. Suddenly he felt very tired. But once under the blankets he couldn't sleep right away. He kept thinking of Mom, lying alone in a hospital bed far away. How lonely she must be. Then he remembered to pray. "Be near to my mother, Lord Jesus," he prayed. Soon he fell asleep. Joel hung back. Now that they were actually approaching the door to Mom's hospital room, he felt shy. But Elam was marching right ahead with Elsie Yoder, so Joel couldn't very well stay behind. He blinked twice as they entered the room. Was that Mom? That pale face on the pillow? Was that Mom's? Then she opened her eyes and smiled. That made her look more like Mom. Joel went up to her, and she reached out to take his hand. "Having an operation makes you pretty sick," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Joel stood there holding his hat. He couldn't think of a single thing to say. Elam began talking about their art project and how they'd wrapped the toys at school yesterday. Once he glanced at Joel to see whether he minded that Elam was giving the news Joel had planned to tell. But Joel didn't care. All he really cared about was that Mom was going to be all right. Chapter 22. A Grateful Receiver. Mom had to be in the hospital 4 days in all. The boys went to visit her twice more, once on Sunday and once on Monday after school. On Tuesday afternoon, Joel could hardly wait to get home. He ran ahead of Elam and dashed into the kitchen, banging the door. Then he stopped short. A girl stood in front of him, holding a finger to her lips. It took Joel a moment to recognize Rachel Schwarzentruber. "Shh," she said. "Your mom's asleep in the bedroom." "Okay," said Joel. He went quietly upstairs to change. Then he fidgeted around in the kitchen, watching as Rachel peeled potatoes and swept the floor. "When do you think she's going to wake up?" he asked after a while. Rachel, who was merely 16, shrugged. "Better not wake her." "Course not." Joel watched her a while longer. He wished Mom were working in the kitchen instead of Rachel. He wished lots of things, but none of his wishes appeared to be coming true just now. After Mom awoke, Joel went to her room. "Why's Rachel here?" was his first question. "Because I'm not supposed to work yet," Mom answered with a smile. "We should be thankful she could come." Joel wasn't so sure. He could remember when Rachel went to school, she had often been bossy with the younger children. Joel was in no mood to be bossed around, at least not by Rachel Schwarzentruber. As a matter of fact, though, right now he wouldn't mind Mom bossing him a bit. But Mom still wasn't much like her old self. Another week passed before she felt like bossing the boys again. One evening when they came home from school, Rachel was gone, and Mother was sitting at the sink with a paring knife in her hand. Joel beamed. "You're well again." Mom looked at him, barely smiling. "No, I'm afraid I'm not very well yet. I peeled one potato and now I'm exhausted." "Why did you let Rachel go then?" Joel blurted. "Because her mom got sick and she was needed at home." Mom put down the paring knife. "I think I'll go to bed now. Maybe Elam can make potato soup for supper." "Sure," said Elam confidently. He picked up the knife and a potato. Joel watched critically. His peelings were a lot thicker than Mom's, but at least he got the skin off. Then he began cutting the potato into chunks. "We should add some carrots to this soup. Get some in the cellar, Joel." Joel did as he was told. Elam began peeling the carrots, too. "Mom doesn't peel carrots, she washes them," Joel objected. "Oh? How?" Joel reached under the sink. "With this yellow brush." Elam took the brush and scrubbed away. Then he cut the carrot into orange coins and added them to the pot. "Now, some water, I think, and salt." He put the pot on the wood stove. "Guess we could set the table while we wait for the soup to boil," he suggested. When that was done, Elam checked the potatoes. "Hey, they haven't even started boiling," he exclaimed. Joel came over for a look. "What about the fire? Maybe it's low." Elam opened the stove lid. A few red coals sat on the bottom of the grate. He peered into the wood box. "No wood! We'd better get busy." He dashed to the woodshed and split several pieces of wood. Soon they had the flames roaring up merrily, but it still seemed to take the potatoes a long time to boil. Elam kept poking them with a fork to see whether they were tender. After a while, Mom came out of the bedroom. "Supper ready?" she asked with a little smile. "Not quite. We forgot to get the fire going at first," Elam apologized. "That's okay. I'll sit here till you have things ready." Mom eased herself onto a chair. "I do feel better now, after a little rest. I'm simply going to have to take it easy a while longer." "Leave the work for us. We can do it," Elam assured her. Mom patted his arm. "Yes, you can, and I'm thankful for my boys." They had finished eating when someone knocked at the door. It was Sam Miller, Edwin's dad, and he was carrying a big box. He put the box on the table, took off his hat, and sat on a chair.
"Well, how are things going?"
"Better, but slow," Mom told him.
"You still have help?"
"Yes, Joel and Elam," Mom replied with a smile. Sam looked at the boys.
"I guess you're old enough to be a good help, too."
Joel was fidgeting. What could be in that huge box? Sam grinned.
"I guess you're wondering why I came. Well, the community got together a sunshine box for you folks, to help pass the winter months, you know, if you have to stay at home a lot."
He patted the box.
"There's a parcel in here for you to open every day from now through January."
"Something? For every day?" Joel repeated, wide-eyed.
"That's right. It's nothing fancy, mind you, just little things, mainly to remind you that people are thinking of you."
Sam got to his feet.
"Well, I better be going. Enjoy your sunshine box."
"May we open a package now?" Joel asked eagerly when he was gone. "Yes, if there's one with today's date." Joel opened the big box and peered inside. "Yes, here's one for today." He lifted out a wide, flat package. "Now, what could this be? It's from John Martin's." "Open it," suggested Mom. Joel tore away the wrapping. "It's a calendar! A homemade calendar for next year!" he exclaimed. "My, these are nice pictures. Those Martin children are real artists. See, Elam?" Elam didn't appear too interested. He took only one glance at the calendar, which was obviously the result of many hours of work. "Well, it's not next year yet, but we could hang up the calendar anyway," said Mom. She was looking at Elam with a slight frown, but he refused to meet her eyes. Joel loved that sunshine box. Every evening when the boys came home from school, they opened the day's package. Once there were some washcloths. Once there was a package of Jell-O. Another time it was macaroni. Once there was even a homemade game. Joel kept offering to let Elam open a package, but Elam wasn't interested. He never exclaimed much over the contents of the packages either. Finally, Mom said to him, "Elam, don't you appreciate the neighbors' thoughtfulness?" Elam scowled. "Well, what do they figure? That we can't take care of ourselves?" "Oh, Elam, you must not let pride get in your way like that," Mom said with a shake of her head. "Think back to when you were making those presents for the orphans. You really enjoyed that, didn't you? Doing something for someone else?" Elam nodded grudgingly. Mom went on. "The Bible says, 'God loveth a cheerful giver,' and I've thought many times that those words might just as well be, 'God loveth a grateful receiver.'" She paused, then added in a low voice, "Elam, I know all too well that sometimes it's harder to be a receiver than a giver, but none of us could be givers if there were no receivers." "You know, you're right," Elam agreed. "I hadn't thought about it that way." He turned to Joel. "What did you say? May I open today's package?" Joel held it out to him. "You certainly may." Chapter 23. 13th Birthday. Little snow fell in January that year, but February quite made up for it. There was snow every day for the first 2 weeks. "I like having so much snow," Joel declared as Elam and he walked home from school one evening. He was shuffling along in the powdery drifts beside the road, making special tracks of his own. "It's okay for now, but I hope it goes away in time for us to start planting in March," was Elam's reply. "Thinking of the garden already?" Joel asked in surprise. "Of course. Why, today's my birthday, and we usually make out our seed order weeks before that," Elam pointed out. "You're right," Joel said thoughtfully. "I wonder why we haven't sent the order yet." "Probably because of Mom's illness, but she's well now," Elam said. Joel snapped his fingers as though remembering something. "Oh, yes, remember what Mom said last year on your birthday?" Elam wrinkled his brow. No. She said you may start reading the scripture for evening devotions when you're 13, Joel reminded him. That's right, I'd completely forgotten. Maybe Mom has forgotten too. Joel shook his head. I doubt it. He stamped his feet on the porch, then used the broom to sweep snow from his boots. The kitchen was warm and smelled invitingly of fresh-baked bread. Joel took one look at Mom's pink cheeks and exclaimed, You look better than ever tonight. Mom's color deepened even more. Must be from the heat of the stove. I've been baking. Joel stared longingly at the loaves of fresh brown bread. Could we have a slice with some butter and honey? I guess so. Mom brought the bread knife and held the loaf carefully. It's so easy to squash a fresh loaf. Here you are. Want some too, Elam? Sure do. Joel slathered his warm slice with butter and watched it melt down into the pores of the bread. Then he added some honey and sank his teeth into it. This is good. Mom, said Elam, forgetting not to speak with his mouth full, what about the seed order? Isn't it about time we filled it out? Mom was stooped down, taking something out of the oven. Maybe we should, she said in a strange, absent-minded way. But not tonight. I have too many other things on my mind. Whatever those things were, they must have still been on her mind when it was time for scripture reading that night. Both boys waited expectantly when Mother brought the big German Bible. Joel was sure she would give it to Elam. After all, she hadn't forgotten it was his birthday. But no, Mom kept the Bible herself. Joel couldn't keep quiet. I thought you said Elam would do the reading once he's 13. Mom looked up. Once again her face was flushed. Why, that's right, I forgot. She handed the Bible to Elam. Here, we're ready for the last part of Luke 6, about the wise man and the foolish man. Elam cleared his throat. Slowly he began to read. He stumbled a few times over the German words, but he could read almost as well as Mother. Joel tried to imagine that Elam was his dad, leading devotions as Harvey Yoder did. Soon it was bedtime. Joel hunted around for his toothbrush. Mom, where's my... he began. Then, glancing at Elam, he raised his voice. Why, you're using my toothbrush. Don't you know what color your own toothbrush is? He swatted Elam's hand, intending to knock the toothbrush from his grip. Ow! Ow! Roared Elam. You needn't hit me. I didn't even know I had your brush. Boys, came Mom's voice, stern but with a hint of weariness. Joel felt instantly sorry. He knew Mom hated it when they quarreled. Mom went on. In the scripture tonight, did you catch the difference between the wise man and the foolish man? Why was the wise man's house like the one built on the rock, while the foolish man's was like the one built on the sand? Her eyes were on Joel. Why, the wise man heard the Lord's words, he stammered. But the foolish man did too, Elam pointed out. Joel felt his face grow hot. He realized he hadn't been paying proper attention. Mom prompted. You tell us then, Elam. The wise man also did as the Lord said. The foolish man merely heard the Lord's words but didn't do them. Elam explained. Mother nodded. Now remember all the things Jesus talked about earlier in Luke 6, such as doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Jesus' words are no good to us unless we also put them into practice. Yes, Mother, Joel said. He went upstairs, still thinking about the house that crashed when the floods came. In his room he pressed his nose against the window, watching the snowflakes swirling out of the darkness. Thicker and faster they came, until the air seemed full of them. No hurry for a seed order yet, Joel muttered to himself as he hurried to crawl under his warm blankets. The sun was shining brightly next morning, its rays glinting on the fresh blanket of snow as the boys set off for school. Joel walked in a straight line, trying to keep his feet on tracks made by buggy wheels on the lane. Suddenly he stopped. "Elam, was somebody here this morning? These tracks are fresh." Elam squinted against the sunlight. Between the two narrow tracks made by the wheels ran a horse's hoof prints. "How do you know they're fresh?" "Because it was snowing when we went to bed. Really snowing," Joel answered quickly. Nobody's been here that I know of, and I've been up since 6:30, Elam said thoughtfully. Joel was getting excited. "Somebody must have been here during the night. Maybe it was a robber. I'm going back to tell Mom." Elam grabbed his arm. Just a minute. Tell me, what robber would come with a buggy? Are there Amish robbers?" Joel stopped pulling to get away. "No, I guess not," he said sheepishly. His practical big brother went on. "If you go back now, you'll be late for school. There'll be time enough to tell Mom about these tracks when we get home from school, okay?" "Okay," Joel agreed reluctantly. When they reached the end of the lane, he took careful note which way the buggy had turned. After all, you never knew. Chapter 24. Great News. The door banged behind Joel as he dashed into the house after school. "Mom, did you notice anything missing around here today?" Mom turned to look at him with a quizzical frown. "Missing?" "Well, there were buggy tracks in our lane this morning, and I figured anybody who would sneak in and out at night would be up to no good," Joel explained. At that moment, Elam came in and snorted. "So you still suspect an Amish thief?" Joel glared at Elam, then turned back to Mom. She wore the strangest look, as though she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Finally, she sat down on the woodbox and began to laugh. Joel watched her in bewilderment. "What's the joke?" Mom wiped her eyes. "I didn't know when would be a good time to tell you, boys, but now is as good a time as any. Joel, Elam, I have some important news." Years afterward, Joel could still picture his mother the way she looked at that moment, sitting on the edge of the woodbox, leaning forward earnestly. Her voice sounded strange, as though she wanted it to be firm, yet it refused to be firm. Joel's heart started racing. Somehow, he knew he was about to hear something big and life-changing. Yet he was not prepared for what she said. "Boys, the man who was here last night came to visit me. He is going to be your father." Joel's thoughts churned. How could that be? His own dad couldn't come back, and— "Mom!" exclaimed Elam. His voice squeaked, the way it often did these days because he was just starting to develop his grown-up voice. "You're getting married again!" Joel's mind cleared a little. Of course, if Mother were to have a husband, he would have a father. "But who?" he stammered. Mother smiled. Her face had blushed a pretty pink color again. "George Detweiler." Elam almost shouted. "Aaron and Alan's dad, you mean?" "That's right." Joel couldn't have been more surprised if Mom had hit him over the head. He groped for words. "Then, if George gets to be our dad, Aaron and Alan would be my brothers?" "That's right," Mom said again. "So, along with your new dad, you are getting 3 brothers and 2 sisters." Elam wrinkled his brow, trying to remember. Oh, there's Peter and Pollyanna, and... Mother supplied the other name for him. "Mary." Elam smiled. "That will make 2 Marys in this house." Then his eyes opened wide as he thought of something. "Mom, would we still live in this house, or are we moving to Ohio to live at George's place?" Joel thought his heart would stop. Move to Ohio? Leave this house? Never. In the split second before Mom replied, Joel pictured Mom leaving for Ohio while he waved goodbye to her from the door of their house. But Mom shook her head. No, we won't be moving. George, Aaron, Alan, and Mary want to come and live here. Peter and Pollyanna will stay on the farm in Ohio, and when Peter gets married, that will be his. Joel hadn't realized he was holding his breath, but now he let out a long sigh. Elam was full of questions. Is that why you went to Ohio last fall? To visit George? I guess that was the main reason, Mom admitted with a smile. We saw each other several times that week. Joel was remembering those buggy tracks in the snow. But Mom, if that was George last night, did he come all the way from Ohio in a buggy? Elam fairly hooted. Mom's hand went to her mouth. She didn't want to embarrass Joel. No, he stayed with relatives in the area over the weekend and used someone else's buggy to come visit. I see, said Joel. Somehow he felt a little resentful toward Mom for doing something like this behind his back. I hardly know how this George looks, he muttered. Oh, said Mom. Well, his hair used to be the same color as the boys', if you remember what that was. Joel nodded. Reddish? Yes, only it's all gray now. Is he pretty old? Elam asked. Only 43, Mom replied. Most men that age aren't as gray as he is. She closed her eyes, probably picturing George. What else could I say to describe him? He's tall as Harvey Yoder, but not as broad. Elam was already thinking of something else. Good thing we kept Will. Aaron will be glad. Mother nodded. We're hoping that having Will here will help Aaron get used to his new home. He's the kind of boy who might find the changes difficult. Joel was thinking, what about me, Mom? How do you think I feel about getting a whole new family all of a sudden? But of course he didn't say that out loud. Mom, Joel said, you probably don't know George very well yet if you've only seen him a few times. Joel was certain the wedding would still be a long way off. People had to know each other before they got married, didn't they? But Mom asked, has it occurred to you that people can get to know each other quite well by writing letters? We've exchanged a lot of letters since last summer. Oh, said Joel. He was feeling miffed again. All those letters, and he never caught on. Will this house have room for so many people? He asked next. It may seem a little crowded at first, Mom admitted. Aaron and Alan will need the one spare bedroom and Mary the other. Perhaps sometime we'll add on to the house. When's the wedding? Asked practical Elam. In May. Actually, it's not so many weeks now till the Sunday when we're to be published. The whole Detweiler family will be coming from Ohio that day. They will be staying at Harvey's over the weekend. Then we can go back and forth and all get better acquainted. That will be nice, won't it? Mom's voice had a pleading note to it. Suddenly Joel realized she wanted him and Elam to like them, all of them, the new dad, the new sisters, and the new brothers, even Alan. Something big and hard was pushing up into Joel's throat. He found himself wanting to run to Mother and bury his face in her apron and say, Mom, let's just keep things the way they were. We liked it that way. We don't know whether we'll like the changes. Why not just stay the same as always? But he couldn't do that. He saw in Mom's face that this meant a great deal to her. He wanted her to be happy. Joel looked down at himself and realized he was still wearing his school clothes. Just then the clock chimed 5 times. He got up and headed for the stairs. Mom must not see the tears that insisted on coming. Chapter 25. Brothers-to-be. Later that evening, Mom got up from her rocking chair to go to bed. She paused on her way past the staircase. What was that sound? She hurried softly up the stairs and knocked on the door to Joel's room. "Joel, may I come in?"
"Yes,"
said a muffled voice. The sobs she had heard were silent now. Joel's bed creaked as she sat down on the edge. After a moment he felt her hand lightly touching his shoulder. She sat for a while that way, not saying anything. He waited. "Joel," she said, "do you think it's going to be hard?"
I don't know."
"Maybe it is," she said. "Maybe I didn't think how hard it will be for you." Joel held his breath. What would she say next? That she would just drop the whole matter, and they could go on as before? Then he felt ashamed of his selfish thought. "Joel, tell me, is it mostly because of the way you feel about Alan?" Joel thought about it.
"I guess I just don't like big changes."
"Changes are a part of life, Joel. Sooner or later big changes do come. They come in different ways to different people. Not many people get new fathers, of course, but everybody gets changes." Mom paused. "You are a little worried about having Alan for a brother, aren't you?" Joel sniffed.
"He made fun of our things."
"You know what I think? I think Alan didn't really mean to sound as scornful as you took him to be."
"Huh,"
said Joel. The silence in the bedroom stretched on for so long that Joel began feeling guilty. He knew he was being difficult. He knew he should just be like Elam, matter of fact, taking everything in stride. But he was not Elam. He was Joel, an 11-year-old boy facing something that looked impossible. In the dim light, Joel saw Mom reach a hand to her face. What was she doing? Wiping away a tear? Joel gulped.
"Mom, I don't mean to make things hard for you. I'm glad if you're happy."
Mom's hand squeezed his shoulder. "I want you to be happy too, Joel. I would not be doing this. We would not be getting married unless we believed it is what God wants. Do you believe that too?"
"Yes."
"I guess," Mom went on, her voice growing less shaky again, "it all comes back to being willing, doesn't it? We have to be willing to accept changes, willing to make adjustments. Willingness makes it easier all along the way." A slow smile spread across Joel's face. Talking about willingness made him think of Will, the horse that needed a carrot to get him going. There was a chuckle in Joel's voice now as he said, "Mom, we don't want to be like Will, do we?" Mom patted his shoulder. "That's my boy. No, we certainly don't. Ready to sleep now?" "Yes, Mother." His eyes closed and he fell asleep almost before Mom reached the bottom step. In his dreams, Alan Detweiler rode Will at full gallop down the pasture. Then Will stepped into a groundhog hole, and Alan flew over the horse's head and fell into the creek. When Alan came out of the creek, he was shaking his red hair just the way Jim did when he was through with the swim. Weeks passed. Warm weather came, and with it the seed order Mom and the boys had sent off. Soon Joel was so busy helping plant garden that he didn't have much time to think about the Detweilers. Finally, though, the day came for Mother and George to be published. A feeling of dread grew inside Joel as he and Mom and Elam neared the place where church was being held that Sunday morning. What should he say to his red-haired brothers-to-be when he saw them? How would Alan act? Aaron was sure to smile, but what about Alan? Joel's dread grew until it threatened to choke him. Lady slowed to a walk as they drove in the lane behind a half-dozen other buggies. "I guess we should have taken Will this morning," Elam remarked. "Aaron is sure to ask about him." "Aaron can see Will when they all come to our place this afternoon," Mom replied before leaving the buggy. Shortly after Elam had tied Lady, Aaron Detweiler appeared around the corner of the barn. A wide grin spread across his face. "Hello," he said shyly. Elam and Joel smiled and nodded. Then Alan came. "Hello," he said abruptly. He jammed his hands into his pockets. "Nice sunny day." "Yes," agreed Elam. "Shall we go in?" Joel took a deep breath. It was over, that first dreaded encounter. Somehow, though, they would have to spend the whole afternoon and evening together, and later, after the wedding, they would spend a lifetime together, he and these boys who were almost strangers. Then Joel pushed the thought away. For now, at least, everything was all right. After the church service and lunch were over, Mom and the boys went home. Soon the Detweilers joined them, and Joel and Elam met the Detweiler girls. Mary had light brown hair and freckles on her nose. Her eyes were green like her dad's. There was something about her smile that made Joel think of mischief. Pollyanna seemed to be like Aaron, shy and quiet. Her hair was not red, though, but black. Peter was a lot like his twin, only in a boyish sort of way. "Shall we go outside?" Elam asked the younger boys. Alan shrugged. Aaron asked with shy eagerness, "Can we see Will?" "Sure." Elam led the way to the barn. Alan seemed reluctant, but came too. "Do you still use him sometimes?" Alan asked once they stood in front of Will's stall. His voice implied that he certainly wouldn't be using him. Elam replied, "He has cultivated the garden a few times this spring." "Pretty slow, I guess." Alan looked at Joel. Joel nodded. He didn't trust himself to say anything. He kept his eyes on Aaron, who was talking to Will. The horse was unmistakably delighted to see Aaron. After a while, Alan said impatiently, "Have you seen enough of that horse now?" Aaron shook his head. Alan turned to Elam. "Come on, let's you and I go out if he wants to stay with Unwilling all day." Elam hesitated. He knew it would not be polite to leave Aaron alone in the barn. "You staying here?" he asked Joel. Joel nodded and watched them go with a sense of relief. He knew things weren't exactly the way you would expect, with the older Stutzman going off with the younger Detweiler, while he, Joel, stayed with 14-year-old Aaron. But it was a very comfortable arrangement as far as Joel was concerned. After supper was over and the Detweilers had gone, Joel asked Elam, "What did you and Alan do?" "Oh, we went for a walk. Alan wanted to see the cave." "He did?" Joel exclaimed in surprise. "And he didn't make fun of it?" "He said something about it being pretty small, but I didn't mind," Elam said with a shrug. Joel scowled. So he did make fun of it. Mom looked up from her book. "Elam didn't feel that way about it, Joel. Have you ever heard that saying, 'Beauty is in the eye of the beholder'? Perhaps it would also be right to say, 'Scorn is in the ear of the hearer.' It helps to not expect Alan to be scornful." "I see," said Joel, though he wasn't sure that he did. One thing, at least, was sure. He liked Aaron. The girls and Peter were probably all right, too. As for Alan, well, only time would tell. Chapter 26. Changes. Joel lay on his stomach on the cool earth floor of the cave. His one arm was stretched out so his hand hung in the creek. The water tickled his fingers as it eddied past the roots of the cedar tree. Jim had been sniffing around in the back of the cave, but now he came and flopped down beside Joel. His tongue hung out as he smiled a collie welcome. Joel scratched Jim's ruff with his other hand. Joel sighed. It was a half-happy, half-sad sigh. It felt good to be here in the cool, quiet cave with the creek rippling past. That made him happy. But when his thoughts traveled up through the pasture to the house, he was sad. Or was it sadness he felt? Joel wasn't sure. All he knew was that it wasn't a good feeling to think of all the new people that had crowded into his life since the wedding. The once roomy house was suddenly too small. There was no privacy anywhere, not even in the garden or the barn. Wherever Joel went, there was George, or Alan, or Aaron, or Mary. Life just was not the same anymore. Lying there in the cool cave, Joel thought back to the wedding. How strange it had seemed to see his mother getting married. In a way, it hadn't seemed real. Not on the wedding day, anyway. But now it was reality. Moving day had come and gone. The house seemed to have twice as much furniture in it as before. Everywhere he looked, Joel saw changes. The livestock in the barn was no longer Harvey's, it was George's. The crops in the fields, Mom had said, were not Harvey's either. She had paid for the seed grain, and now the crops belonged to them, to Mom and George. To us, Elam had said firmly. Joel buried his face in Jim's soft fur. "I don't feel like it's us," he told the dog. "They don't seem like my family. George isn't my dad." A tear escaped and was quickly lost in Jim's golden coat. "How does Elam do it?" Joel went on. "He acts as though getting a new family is the most everyday thing in the world." Very faintly Joel heard a voice, Mom's voice, calling, "Joel!" He sat up with a start. He knew he should be up there, helping pick berries. He started to climb out. Then he stopped and lay down in the cave again. Beside him, Jim thumped his tail as if to say, "I understand. I know how you feel. You can count on me."